I'm doing good. Got my coffee and ready for day two. I think Michael is flying right now from Atlanta to San Francisco, so we're going to get the chance to meet him at 2:30 today. And then the 49ers have 3 picks as of right now, 43, 75, and 100. And I think that my Saturday is going to be insanely busy because I'm doing the math right now. I think they've got 6 or 7 picks. It's going to be really, really busy on Saturday. So I'm just bracing myself. Last night was cake compared to how busy it's going to be coming up here for the 49ers. 9% of the draft is finished. 9%.
Literally 1 pick yesterday, 3 today, and as you point out, 2 fourth-rounders on Saturday, 3 fifth-rounders on Saturday, a 6th-rounder on Saturday, and 3 7th-rounders on Saturday. So hunker down, get another cup of coffee. Okay, so David, if we were doing this interview 2 days before the draft and we were running through candidates and I said to you, hey, what do you think of Michael Williams of Georgia and how he fits with the Niners compared to the other guys available, particularly the guys who were picked right after him? What would your answer have been a couple days before?
Well, let the record speak for itself. 2 or 3 days before, I predicted Michael Williams to the 49ers. My initial mock draft was Derek Harmon, but then the medical flag on the shoulder came up, and it just became more and more apparent to me, especially after John Lynch talked on Tuesday, that they really like the positional value of an edge rusher at number 11, because it's just not easy to find players with the physical measurements that can succeed on the exterior in space beyond the first round. So I just thought that Michael Williams, based on what John Lynch said and what it's obvious the 49ers covet and what they need, right? This was the number 29 run defense in football last year. It was really bad. They needed a really good edge setter. They believed this guy was the best edge setter in football. And then they just needed power to rush on the other end. Even if he's an underdeveloped pass rusher, he does have the ability to collapse the pocket. He's extremely powerful. He's got those long 34-inch arms. He's got a 1.6 10-yard split, which is actually elite for somebody his size at 270 pounds. It was just a very, very 49ers 4-3 Robert Saleh, Chris Kasarik pick. And I think it became apparent heading into Thursday night that the 49ers were going to go in this direction. The other potential direction, obviously, was Shamar Stewart, who has similar measurables, maybe a better athlete, but the production really wasn't there for Shamar Stewart. Not just with the lack of sacks, but he missed a ton of tackles in college. That wasn't an issue for Michael Williams, who was, again, really, really good against the run.
Peter Schrager yesterday on the ESPN broadcast after the pick said that Robert Saleh had a big voice in raking the defensive linemen in this draft class. So how much of an impact and influence do you think Robert Saleh had on this decision to draft Michael Williams, and how do you think he fits into his defense?
Well, I think that Robert Saleh had a massive impact. I think Chris Kasarik, who actually thinks that Michael Williams is the best edge setter in this 2025, maybe the best edge setter in college football, but definitely in the 2025 draft class. I think that he had a big impact here. The 49ers were very bullish on the consensus that they had built. They were already bullish about it on Tuesday. The building was in on this pick, and that's why they even tried to trade up for him, and ended up being a break for the 49ers that whoever they were trying to trade with rebuffed them because they didn't need to trade for him. So that would have been a little bit of a problem, and they're all giving John Lynch a little bit of crap for that after. But it was all laughs for the 49ers. They were sure that they were going to go after Michael Williams, and they were able to get him with number 11. They didn't have to package anything else to acquire this player.
We're talking to David Lombardi of the San Francisco Standard, sfstandard.com, as the Niners take 20-year-old Michael Williams, a defensive lineman from Georgia, 6'5", 267. He will come out today. But again, like we kind of alluded to at the start of the conversation, so much more to go. 3 today, 43, 75, and 100. Gets a little harder to predict what you can get here because the variables just get bigger and bigger as each pick goes by. But that said, if you had to predict where do you think the 49ers would go today, do you stay on the D-line? Is it all trenches, just D-line and O-line? Dare they step outside of those two places?
When I made my mock draft a few days ago, I figured D-line round 1, but I really do want to pick up a tackle. The problem for them at tackle is the same one that you have at edge rusher. It's really hard to find a player with the physical specifications that are necessary for success at one of these exterior line spots outside the first round. So if you had gone the opposite, if you had gone offensive tackle in the first round, then it would be really hard to find an edge rusher who matches what you need in the second round. I think, though, in this draft, there might be a guy who is still available right now at tackle who can fit what the 49ers need, and that's Arante Ursary out of Minnesota. He's 6'6", 331. He didn't start playing football until the middle of his high school time, and so there's still some meat left on the bone here, but I think because of his relative rawness, he still is available. And maybe the 49ers trade up from 43 somewhere into the 30s to be able to get him, because I think he's going to be off the board fairly soon. So we'll see how serious they are about drafting an offensive tackle, but I think it does need to happen at some point, just given the fact that Trent Williams is 36 years old and Colton McKivit's only under contract for this season. You lost Jalen Moore, your swing tackle, to the Kansas City Chiefs. That does need to be on the 49ers' radar. Other guys, Nick Emanwari still on the board, and it's hard for me to see him lasting all too long. This is a DB out of South Carolina who's just tremendously versatile. And we knew the 49ers weren't going to pick a DB in the first round, but now you move on to the second, the third round. You have these guys who can essentially moonlight as linebackers as well, can be jokers on the back end of the defense. That's going to really intrigue Robert Saleh, who's evolved as a coordinator. And finally, Darius Alexander, defensive tackle out of Toledo. Really look out for this guy, because what the 49ers have to do, guys, is John Lynch straight up said it. He said, this is not the last defensive lineman we're picking. So they're not being coy at all. They really need to focus some of their fire now on the defensive tackle position. And Darius Alexander, this is a 305-pound guy, so this is going to be more of your run stuffer, but he can move. We're talking, sub-5 40 time, and somebody who 1-7 10-yard split, which is really, really good for 305 pounds. Rangy run defender at that weight, and I think that he would complement what the 49ers are building up front quite well.
Well, speaking of defensive tackles, David, I did hear John Lynch yesterday after the selection of Mykel Williams say that he is versatile enough to maybe move inside. What's your breakdown on that? Do you think he can have the ability to play both outside and inside at the NFL level?
Oh, he absolutely has to play inside. That's why they picked him. I mean, if you look at this defense at its best, when Chris Kacerek came in 2019 and paired up with Robert Saleh, Eric Armstead's career took off because he was able to play that edge position in base situations and really boosted the 49ers run defense. But then Armstead, with his just sheer length, moved inside and gave guards who typically have shorter arms a whole lot of problems. So since Armstead, the 49ers have done similar stuff with Charles Omenihu. They did it with Arden Key. Yetur Gross-Matos, who they actually really like, is still on the team. They can do that with him. But now with Mykel Williams, you're talking edge player in rundown situations, kicks inside with those 34-inch arms to give guards problems, pass rushing on the inside. He already did some of that at Georgia. Now, they're running a different scheme there, but the 49ers saw enough from what they're running in Georgia to say, okay, this guy can run some of these game maneuvers, some of the stunts, and he could also just line up on the inside and give guards problems. You know, one thing that travels really well wherever you're at on the defensive line is power. And he's got a lot of it. So he can run his power move. He's going to develop the hand movements, and it's going to be great for him to be with Nick Bosa. Kyle Shanahan called Bosa a ninja with his hand movements. It's going to be great to do all that, but you know that he can pack up power and travel with it wherever he is at on the line, and the inside is definitely going to have to be one of those spots.
Yeah, we're talking to David Lombardi of the San Francisco Standard, sfstandard.com, and he's all over it. Obviously, just, Saleh, scheme, Mykel Williams. I want to go bigger picture here about the first round of the draft and focus on the NFC West. Always looking to look at your opponents. Now, the Cardinals get Walter Nolan. Nobody's really thinking about the Cardinals too much, but that's a guy the Niners, maybe we're linked to a little bit. The Seahawks go for an offensive lineman from North Dakota State named Gray Zabel that got some buzz. And then the thing the Rams did that kind of freaked me out a little bit was they picked up a first rounder. That startled me that the Falcons gave them a first rounder to move to 26 to take James Pierce. So just a thought on what the competition did.
I really like what the Cardinals are doing. Keep in mind that Jonathan Gannon over there came from the Eagles. I think the Cardinals are doing the Philadelphia blueprint for that defensive line. Now, in Philadelphia, they had the tremendous advantage of Howie Roseman picking so well at defensive line for such a long time. But what they were really able to do, especially on the way to this latest Super Bowl, is mix veteran defensive linemen like true stalwarts with really good young guys. And this is going to apply to the 49ers because I think the 49ers are taking a page from the Eagles' book as well. But, when the Eagles drafted Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith, they were able to pair him with Brandon Graham and Josh Sweat, two defensive linemen who'd been there for a really long time. And obviously, I think being in the room together, all those rookies were able to pick up a lot and really develop into a good unit. So what the Cardinals have done is that they signed Josh Sweat away from the Eagles, so there's that connection for Jonathan Gannon. They signed Dalvin Tomlinson, who's a big-time defensive tackle. He was with the Browns, and now they draft Walter Nolan, and Tomlinson can tutor Walter Nolan. They're creating a very similar dynamic to what the Eagles were able to create, right? Now, the 49ers are emulating the Eagles in that, okay, they see the University of Georgia. The Eagles picked Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith. The 49ers are, all right, that's a pretty high-floor approach. You can't really go wrong picking defensive linemen out of Georgia, so they go with Michael Williams. But I think what the 49ers were really doing is emulating the Rams, who just used a ton of draft capital over the course of the past 2 years on defensive linemen. Obviously, trade out of the first round this time, but they're they picked up a first round pick. Sorry. Now they're going to be able to use more in the future, but we're going to have to see who they add to the team here in the coming days. Finally, for the Seahawks, Gray Zabel, that was somebody who the 49ers, at least their fans, were interested in because there is some consternation about their play on the interior offensive line. I think Daniel Jeremiah actually mocked Gray Zabel to the 49ers in his final mock draft, and that created some ripples, but that was never going to be a likely move given the 49ers' need for a defensive lineman.
David Lombardi is the voice here this morning on the UMA guest line. And David, you listed off a few of the best players available going into round 2 today. One name that you did not mention, but I saw you mention on social media, is Luther Burden, the wide receiver out of Missouri. Now, I don't know if this might be viewed as too much of a luxury pick for the 49ers with pick number 43, but he is a guy that has been comped to Deebo Samuel a lot over this draft process. Do you think maybe that pick's in play, or do you think it's too early to invest in a wide receiver?
No, I think they need a wide receiver, and I'm really curious to see how they fill out that room. Amari Cooper is still a free agent. Luther Burden's probably somebody who's going to be picked today, 4.4 speed, so maybe Kyle Shanahan really likes him. We know that John Lynch likes his Stanford guy, Alec Eilmanor, who might go, today? It probably goes today, right? Rounds 2 or round 3. There's Nick Nash out of San Jose State, who was at the 49ers Pro Day, who's going to be a day 3 kind of guy. There's Jordan Watkins out of Ole Miss, who visited the 49ers. Kyle Williams, not that Kyle Williams, but the Kyle Williams out of Washington State is probably going to be picked at some point today. So there are a lot of receiver options, and including the one who's a free agent in Amari Cooper. We know that the 49ers were interested in adding Devontae Adams. We know that they were interested in adding Cooper Kupp, but only at reduced prices. They weren't willing to pay through the roof for 32-year-old receivers. So that indicates that they're either looking for a bargain from Amari Cooper, or they're going to go through the draft, where you can always find a bargain because these are cost-controlled prices. So it would not surprise me in the least if they went after a wide receiver today.
All right, well, we got to let you get to it. You got the coffee, you got the rounds, you got a big weekend ahead. So, like we said, 10 picks, man, and who knows? I mean, they may make a trader here too, but 10 picks is a lot of bodies, and we'll see how the 49ers remake.
Real quick, David, do you expect the 49ers to use all 10 of these draft picks, or do you expect them to move up or down in these drafts?
There might be some movement. I think it's just as the opportunity presents itself, right? If there's no good opportunity, then I think they're happy to just load up. Remember the Rams formula, right? The big draft the Rams had, they had 14 picks, and all 14 players made their initial 53-man roster. That was the ultimate renovation, and I really do think the 49ers are using a lot of it as a blueprint for what they're doing this offseason.
I mean, Niners have 8 of the top 160 is the kind of the key phrase to look at. I mean, the let's see if I get there. 1, 2, did I get that right? 1, 2, is that 8 right? Is that right, Dave? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, I count right. I can count right. Actually, maybe 9, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in the top 160. I got to learn how to count.
400, 9, 160.
Gosh, that's a lot of bodies that you're going to be writing about, buddy. And I'll learn how to count by the time we talk to you next time.
And they really think that even up to 160, there could be starting caliber players.
Yeah,
like
right.
They like this, the meat of this draft. So again, like everybody looks at the first round and they act like it's over.
No, yeah.
And we're just getting started. We're 9% of the way through this thing. This is a marathon. Got to get to work. More coffee's needed.
Go see Jimmy Butler for more coffee. All right, David. Love reading you. sfstandard.com. Everybody do it. Go support journalism and subscribe. Thanks, David.
Yeah, thanks, David.
Thank you.
There he